to the states. Governor Cuomo wants to ban it in New York because it is harmful to children. He has the constitutional authority to do that. President Trump does not.
All right, let me switch to the Ukraine stuff that's taken a lot of oxygen out of the room recently. Who's in more trouble here? The president, who had this phone call with the Ukrainian leader, or Joe Biden, who actually did have a quid pro quo with regard to Ukraine when he was vice president?
Well, that depends who you ask.
Well, I'm asking the judge.
I think this is the most serious charge against the president, far more serious than what Bob Mueller dug or dragged up against him. If there was a quid pro quo, it does appear as though $250 million in defensive weaponry was held back for a period of time while these 8 conversations were going on between the president.
Even though there was nothing said, according to the Wall Street Journal, that was quoting a couple of sources they have that were apparently privy to this phone conversation. They said there was no specific quid pro quo.
So if you are the president of the United States and you are making a conversation that you know your intelligence community is listening to, of course you're not going to articulate a quid pro quo. You'll just make the quid pro quo happen.
But if you were a vice president of the United States and you were visiting with the president of Ukraine and you say, look, this prosecutor is going after a number of companies, and you don't tell them, by the way, that one of those companies happens to have your son on it as a board member, and then say, you got to get rid of this prosecutor. Less than 24 hours later, the prosecutor's gone. The investigation of the company to which Biden's son is on the board, that goes away. That sounds like a direct quid pro quo.
So this is probably the end of Joe Biden's presidency, and it ought to be the end of his dream for the presidency. But it doesn't diminish one iota what the current president is doing, which is an act of, if true, we haven't seen the whistleblower complaint, and under the law it has to be revealed. If true, this is an act of corruption.
But I don't want to bury the lead here. You just said this means the end of Joe Biden's.
I don't know how we can survive
presidential
this. Those tapes of him, which I hadn't seen before. When you and I watch this stuff with our colleagues, watch this stuff for a living. He was boasting about his ability to get rid of that prosecutor. I don't know how he survives it.
Unbelievable. Judge Andrew Napolitano, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much. Well, climate change.